Yeah, the universe is vast and wide. Yeah, and it's filled with as much good as it is evil. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the questionnaire. And some evil son of a bitch, again, for the second time, abducted my damn co-host, JD Day Hardaway. I don't know, man. Last time it was the Riddler. I'm gonna have to let him inform me of who it was whenever he gets unfucking abducted. But ladies and gentlemen, I am the unknown factor, yeah? And if it's that quest, Hardaway would normally be here, but he keeps pissing off supervillains. I swear, it's getting annoying. I don't know what he's doing to annoy so many supervillains, but that's besides the point because we got Nick Marinkovich in the house. How goes it, man?
Hey, Ruff, thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me in the house. How are you doing?
It's a pleasure, man. I'm well, man. I just do, man. That's just that whole unknown thing. You know what I mean? One way or the other, it goes, and that's what it goes, and it just goes. But you know, I just gotta address your questionnaire real quickly, which I just want to let everyone out there know. Hopefully, you'll be able to check those out soon. I am actually in the midst of setting up a full website for the questionnaire, where you'll actually be able to see these pre-show questionnaires and what the hell I'm talking about when I'm randomly talking to guests and bringing up real random shit. Because I know Tony, he was like, "We just bring up random shit." Yeah, we just bring up random shit. But hopefully soon you'll actually be able to go and look at all these questionnaires. But so the French bread pizza tops of the frozen French bread pizza. So the pizza tops. I'm gonna read this shit verbatim for everyone out there, man. All right, verbatim from
I
what
know what you're
Nick
talking
wrote.
about, yeah.
All right, right. And then Nick, from this, why the fuck are you not a writer? Why are you an artist? I want to point out, right? Because pizza tops are actually the core conductive element used in the production of lithium ion batteries, powering everything from our mobile devices to electric cars. Cobalt mining is a ruse manufactured by the global elite to maintain a supply of human slavery for use on their private jets. That sounds like a fucking comic book, I want to point out.
It's my idea. No one can take it. Yeah, you know what? Right when you sent me that questionnaire, I was watching man, I forgot the guy's name. It was on Joe Rogan, and he was this investigative reporter who did this dive in the Democratic Republic of the Congo about cobalt mining, and it's some it's some horrible shit. And that was
Yeah,
on my mind. And when I saw that, I just thought, this works. Threw that in there because I couldn't stop thinking about that that entire week. I shouldn't stop thinking about it now, actually, every time I use my phone.
that's the best answer I have ever gotten for that particular question, Nick.
Well,
It
thank you.
it by far, man. And I mean, there have been some clowning answers, like I said. Hopefully, y'all will be able to see them all soon on the website once it's set up. I just God, Jesus, it's a lot. I waited too long between setting up the website and doing episodes, and now I got so much shit I got to put on the website for the fact that there's been like 40 episodes. But that's neither here nor there. So it's just a lot of fucking questionnaires to put up properly. I backlogged myself like a son of a bitch, Nick. So let's just ask, man, what do you do when you get backlogged in what you're doing?
That's a loaded question.
I like
When I
loaded
get back,
questions.
I can't remember time since my 20s that I haven't been backlogged, so it's just become my reality. And yeah, I'm currently backlogged. I really couldn't tell you the last time I haven't been backlogged.
Why you
It
let
exists for
yourself
me
get
in a
so
perpetual
backlogged,
state.
man?
Sorry?
So why you let yourself get so backlogged?
Oh, it's horrible time management. Let's not even go there because it's something I deal with every day. My wife hates it. I could be so much more productive today if I had just mastered that skill in my formative years. And yet here we are.
Man, I think that's a skill that is very difficult to master to the best of its capacity. You know what I mean? I think time management is something that most people never truly master, regardless of what level they're at. If they, I don't think it's so much about time management; it's more about the fact of, oh no, I've got enough money to pay some people to do some of the shit I need to do to get off my plate.
Mhm. That's
I see.
true.
Yeah, I seriously think that's what it is, man. But man, God, I hope I'm pronouncing this right because you literally have the poster in your background right there. Kink.
Kenk, yeah,
What
yeah.
is? See,
Yeah. That's one of those projects I was really proud of. I mean, it came out what 2010. Um, that was a good book. If you can find it, read it. You'll like it.
why do you say if I can find it out of curiosity?
Oh no, I mean you can find it on Amazon.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
I like to, man, look, I can't lie. I like to get things from my local, not so local comic book store to me, Comic Book University. Uh, and then me and Dave end up breaking into all kinds of things as far as because we do what's come out this month, as far as this month in comics, which we'll definitely be talking about what came out this month from Hugh, but we're going to get to that later in the interview. But man, Kink's something I honestly didn't have a chance to look into. Give us a little bit of a synopsis.
okay, so Kenk was uh, here in Toronto. This guy Igor Kenk ran this. What's a better word for it? It's a sketchy fucking bike shop for years since like the 70s, straight through until he got busted. This would have been just shy of 2010, I believe. Like it was crazy. It happened while we were working on the book. So when the cops busted him, and he was in this area called Queen Street in Toronto. I don't know if you're familiar with Toronto at all, but it's kind of the hipster neighborhood. It's
No,
it's
but I
our
know a lot of
Williamsburg, you know.
no, but I know a lot of our past guest star, man, because I can't tell you how many people I've booked from Canada, and I swear I need to, like, part of me wants to make a Pancom with all the Canadian guests we've had, but I can't do like 20 people all at once. That would make my brain hurt.
But okay, so anyway, this guy he ran this bike shop, and it was somewhat notorious, you know, where to put it simply, if you got your bike stolen and you went to the cops would say, check out Igor's place, you know, and when he did get busted, they found warehouses with over 3,000 bikes, stolen bikes he had accumulated over years of doing this, you know. And I was working with the guy who's this was his brainchild was Alex Jansen of Pop Sandbox, and he was actually interviewing him. He like met him one day when he moved into the neighborhood, and just said, "Oh my God, this guy's the most interesting guy I've met in a long time." So he grabbed his camera, went back, and just started recording him. And they went back and forth over and over for like a long period of time doing this. But mind you, this isn't like, you know, we're not talking about high definition footage. It was really grainy, you know, lo-fi camera. And so then he had the idea. Him and I hooked up with this idea for another graphic novel, but that one was kind of put on hiatus while the writer was still working on the script. So then he had the idea, you know, the footage isn't necessarily that usable, but we can make a book out of this. And he hooked up with me, and he's like, "Hey man, would you want to work on this? Because I've seen your other stuff, and it's very reminiscent of this kind of style. And we would work off photos, which you could manhandle any way you wanted." And that's what we did. It's the type of style it is a fumetti. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where you're basically taking photocopies, and I would just draw on the photocopies to
Okay.
make the art for I mean, it's a thick book. It's like 300 pages. The writer was Rich Poplack, this investigative reporter who'd been following Igor's life for a while. Because again, he's this notorious personality in Toronto, and while we were working on this bust happened, which gave us all the publicity we needed to really, you know, make this book take off. It was crazy. We couldn't have asked for more, you know.
That's kind of a something terrible happening to someone else that's just a blessing in disguise for you guys for real. Like that's
Absolutely.
did you kind of feel that way about that, man? Like when he got busted, were you kind of like, "Oh, yes."
That and we're like, oh my God, we have to make sure we can get this out within the next, you know, few months, because it was a, you know, it's a thick body of work, but we did it. You know, I mean, we turned that over in like 6 months, I think, in total, from start to like starting like our first meeting, you know, over a few beers in a diner. and we said, guys, let's do this, to getting it out there. And I mean, people were coming to us for the interviews. This was an indie book from a first-time publisher. Alex had, his company was new at the time, and with this kind of book, usually you're begging for people to take notice, but no, like everyone was coming to us for this. We got covered in the New York Times. It got covered national media in Canada. It was everywhere. Yeah.
But you said 3,000 bikes, right?
I'm sorry?
You said he had warehouses full of 3,000. Yeah. What depth of the reality of the story did you guys have from those interviews, out of curiosity? I mean, because obviously I wouldn't think he would tell you everything, because he would be incriminating the absolute shit out of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm assuming
And
he wasn't
he
like,
was a
oh yeah,
sucker
I
for
got
the media.
3,000 stolen bikes, just chilling in the warehouse. Like, I'm pretty sure he didn't tell you that, right?
Well, no, absolutely not. I mean, it was like a biopic about his life, and I mean, but he's a character. He was this guy. He was from Slovenia, in the former Yugoslavia, and just all kinds of rumors about him. But the interesting thing is his girlfriend at the time was this like Juilliard school pianist. I don't know if they're together anymore, but they were at the time. They were tight, and yeah, he would apparently he would solicit, crackheads and people on junk in exchange for that was his currency, to get him the bikes. And interestingly enough, like when we were interviewing the cops, which was really informative, because they're like, in explaining why this happens. So you could take a $2,000 bike, and get a few $100 from Igor right away for that. And the cops would not even, they wouldn't even waste their time. The cutoff here, I don't know how it is in the US or in other provinces in Canada, but the cutoff here at that time was like $600 before it became major theft. So anything of value below $600 was the equivalent of stealing, a pack of gum. That's how much the cops would actually look into it. This was actually told to us by them. It was great. The guy on the task force was the one we interviewed. And, knowing that's, it really sheds some light into how this kind of scheme could get going and last for so long. And so apparently he had this ledger that was full of people's names where he would, i.e. the people he would get these bikes off. So it was almost like a quid pro quo. The cops would kind of, keep him friendly, and anytime they needed a name, because he could provide it for them. And until they needed a high-profile bust, in which case, they threw him under the bus, and that became the biggest media story in Toronto of that year. It was
Actually,
crazy. You can look it up. I'm sure you'll find a shit ton of information.
I'm sure. Actually, I think it was they threw him under 3,000 bikes, not a bus. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Papers in China were covering this. We actually included some clips of them in the book, in the appendices in the back, where
that's one of the craziest breaks that I've ever heard in the business, Nick.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, like I don't think, I mean, I've heard of, this story just took off, or this or that, but never have I heard, we were writing this book and then this dude got arrested and that blew it up because it was all over the news media. Not in the comic book industry, anyways.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it really sticks out in my mind. It was just a whirlwind. Everything happened so fast and moved so quickly, and it was one of those projects you always dream about working on. And at the time, I was also I was going through this phase where I didn't want to do the commercial stuff. I wanted to see if I could because I went through that phase, I had some work at Marvel. DC never gave me the time of day. But I was with IDW, I did a few projects and Devil's Due, and I was, I wasn't getting the kind of turnover or the repeat work that I wanted at the time. And I just kind of got disillusioned because I was like, I'm not even interested in these stories. What the fuck am I doing this? And so I took a break, just, started doing a 9 to 5 job as a graphic artist for a few years. And at the time, my daughter was born. So, you need some more income to finally be a proper adult. Um, when I started this, when I started illustrating, I was still in my 20s, and a good paycheck just bought my rent and a bag of weed at the time, and I was happy. You know, um, then all of a sudden, a wife comes along and a kid, and all of a sudden you have to be an adult. So I did that for a while, and then this project kind of fell into my lap, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it because this is what I want to do. This is the kind of book I want to do, and I couldn't have asked for a better result. Yeah, that'll be a sweet, memory of mine for the rest of this lifetime.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, in all sincerity. So, man, that's one of the craziest stories I think I've ever heard in relation to a comic. In all honesty, because I can't think of any other book that I've ever heard of where it was like, oh, there was this huge arrest, like, and that's what blew this thing up. Like, the only thing I could really think of and compare it to, even entertainment wise, off the top of my head, is a Serbian film, which I don't recommend anyone watch.
Oh,
Do you know what a Serbian film is? You
I,
know what a
I
Serbian
know.
film
I
is.
haven't seen it. I know of
Uh,
it.
don't watch
I
it,
think
Nick. Don't
I,
watch it. Don't, unless you're into like really screwed up, like, yeah, this is trying to cross every line possible, like, kind of
mm,
shit. Like, it's if I was to compare the Serbian film to a comic as far as the lines that it crossed, I would compare it to Crossed by Garth Ennis. You know what I mean? Which I don't know if you're aware of that book.
I haven't read. I know Garth
It's
Hicks, but I
it,
haven't. I mean, I
it,
don't know him, but I know of him. I haven't
yeah,
read that one though.
yeah. And Cross is pretty. It's pretty. I love Garth Ennis as an author, man. It's the one piece of his work that I've ever read that I'm like, hey, leave this shit a comic. Don't turn it into nothing else. You can
Mhm.
take everything else I've ever read by that man and turn it into a film, TV series, whatever you want. You leave Cross off the damn table, all right? You just
Mhm.
cross that shit off your list. And the Serbian film's that bad. And I bring that up because the movie was so graphic, and the director had the actors go into hiding after the film was done. So the director actually got arrested, and he had to end up calling all these actors, tell them to come out of hiding, being like, "Would you prove that you're not dead?" Right? So that's why it's the only piece of entertainment I can think to compare to Kink as far as in that regard, man. Because you had a serious court case that was like, hey man, look at this blow up our comic book, and I mean he did it in the Serbian film too. But I think his may have been slightly intentional as far as why he had the actors hide, and it's very, very gruesome. But I'll tell you, on the note of film and the pre-show questionnaire, man, why you got a problem with Prometheus?
Oh man, when I saw it, I guess perhaps my expectations were too high. I'm a big Ridley Scott fan. I'm a big Aliens fan, and um, the validation I keep hearing is like, oh well, it's not technically supposed to be an Aliens prequel. Okay, fair enough. If it's not, then why did we just do the same thing all over again in a different setting? I don't know. I just had every character just fell down in that really stereotypical trope of something that a real person would never do. And mind you, the film was beautiful visually. It started off great, and you think it's going to be this amazing thing, and then right away they just start. It's the stupid decision factor. Every character just made a stupid decision that got them killed, and you're like, come on, guys,
How's that a
come
horror
on,
film?
Ridley.
How's
You
that a
you've done
horror
awesome
film?
films. Like I know you can do
Eh,
better. So I don't fully understand uh the rationale there, I guess. It just left me vexed.
Man, you're making me want to watch. It's been a while since I've watched Prometheus. I'll be real honest, and I'm a big Alien fan as well. Shout out to Deck on the previous episode, who's actually currently drawing the current Alien comic that's dropping from Marvel.
Oh,
Um,
nice, nice.
well, for 20th century imprint, I should say, because Marvel's kind of trying to separate those two.
Mhm.
In that. So I'm curious to that regard, man. is there a property you'd literally like to get your hands on, Nick, to draw out there? Because I mean, you clearly said that you're not so much on, you got sick of drawing the Marvel stuff, and I'm assuming the same would apply to a lot of DC, right? You
You know,
you obviously are more interested in what you've done with Kink and what you've done with Dead Romans, which was phenomenal. We're gonna get farther into that in a moment,
nice.
but is there a character out there or anything, or just a property that's a comic that you're like, ooh, I'd like to play with that?
Yeah, let me clarify. I don't want to completely. I grew up as a Marvel fan, and I definitely don't want to. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to say I'm dismissing that. This was like my headspace at the time, you know.
Fair
To
enough.
say that I would dismiss it all, no, no, no. I don't agree with that. Something I'd always wanted to do, and something that I think would fit me, because I can't realistically say that every character would fit my style. Absolutely not. Um, I think I could rock a hell of a Punisher. I'll tell you that, for sure.
Yeah, I would
Uh,
agree.
yeah, yeah, right on, right.
Yeah, yeah, I would
Uh,
definitely agree.
what else? What else? Seeing what you did in Dead Romans, what do you think? What do you think off the top of your head?
As far as mainstream characters, from what I've seen in Dead Romans and what I've seen you the rest of your work, I mean, I could definitely see a Daredevil story. I mean, there are a lot of
Yeah.
street level characters. I
Hmm.
think that your style would definitely work with. Um, I could definitely see it working on a Batman book. You
Right,
know,
right. And
um,
I would not turn something like that down because just for the cachet of it. It's Batman. Come on. Who doesn't want to say they have a Batman in their repertoire?
I mean, yeah, yeah, that's definitely fair. Is there anything that you would turn down? Like, I just don't want to do that.
Well, I do think I'm at a point right now where I can legitimately I'm comfortable enough, if you will, where I could say, like I don't feel, for the longest time you feel you can't turn down anything. And I'm at a point now where I can just say, yeah, I'm fucking too old, man. I can't go into something that you hit that tipping point in your life where you're like, okay, I have only this many years of viability left, and I got to make the most out of them. And am I going to, piss it away on something I really don't care about? You know, what I would take a challenge on though is an interesting character that maybe no one's done for a while, was not selling well, just to see if they could revitalize that. I think that would be an interesting challenge.
Is there a character that comes to mind when you say that, Nick?
Oh God, yeah, that's a good question. And I haven't exactly been following what sales have been like lately, so I don't know if I could validate that with an informed response. Um, but you mentioned Daredevil. That's always been a favorite of mine, just because I do love urban environments. And plus, in Dead Romans, I'm doing the opposite, where I'm completely non-urban. But we'll talk more about that
That's
later
that's a
because it's
little
all.
bit before the urban.
Yeah, yeah, right. But urban
Dude,
environments are actually really fun. There's just so much uh, grit and geometry to work with, and I do love almost incorporating like street art into it. Daredevil would just be asking for that, I think, if you were to do that. I did this series called Nightwolf many years. I was just starting out. It was an indie series on Devil's Due, and I totally got to do all that. The writer was just like, I think he knew that I was. Um, this sounds so arrogant, but I was better than he could get, and but he was a nice guy, and I liked him, and he just let me do whatever I wanted, and he loved everything I turned in. I like working like that. I don't like really. I I like immersing myself, and making the most out of a project. And I don't know if I click well with writers who are very micromanaging. You
so
know,
let's ask to that end, man. Especially based on the fact that you've worked with Marvel. You ever had it to where you're like, man, I swear this editor tells me, and then now, I don't need no names because I'm not trying to cause you any qualms within everything I want to point out. But just if you have a slight story that won't get you in trouble, where you're like, if this guy tells me to edit this one more fucking time,
I have a good story, not with Marvel, and truth be told, my experience with Marvel was great. I can even I'll say the editor's name. It was Nicole Boos, and we did this Hulk and Fantastic Four media piece. And I thought she was great. She didn't. I couldn't have asked for a better editor. In fact, afterwards, because we did so much extra work, she even I didn't ask for this. I was stunned that this happened. She got more pay than we had been contracted for us.
Oh, nice.
I know it's crazy, right? I
Yeah.
was not expecting that at all. So I had a great experience at Marvel. Oh, fuck. In terms of what you're describing, oh man, I don't know if I should go
Oh,
there.
oh, God. Now I
It wasn't
really
at
want to
Marvel.
hear it,
It was
Nick. Now I
no, it was
really want to hear
no,
this
I'll
story.
say it was with a video game company, and I won't say the name, but I had already done one with them, which was great. It was great. Project went great. Then this follow up, this was for the next installment, which came. It was a couple of years later, but different team, completely different team. It wasn't any of the same people. And in this team, it was one of those cases where everyone thought that they were a creative director and everyone was trying to micromanage. And I just felt this thing dragged on so much further than it should have been. And at the end, what I ended up turning in was exactly what the first guy was talking about, which I got right away. And I did all this extra shit for nothing. And it's not like you get paid for that, you know? And that really soured me out. I just thought, like, who are these clowns, you know? And
You just totally made. I don't know if you know the show Mythic Quest. Um,
oh, I do know.
yeah, you totally just made me think of that, and that's all I have to say in that regard. Nick, I'm glad to know that you had a good deal with Marvel, though, man. Shout out to Tom; he's an editor over there. You can check out his past interview on the Questionnaire too. It's a pleasure. You can check out the PanCon that he had with Erica as well as Doug and Steven, where we got into Have Comics Become Too Dark. So, before we get into your current book, Nick, I'm curious, right? Especially with some of the content within the current book you're dropping from Image. What's your opinion on the fact of do you think comics have just gotten a bit too much of an edge to them recently? And by recently, man, I mean like 20 fucking 30, 40 years. You know?
Too much of an edge? I don't really think you can say anything had too much of an edge. I like pushing it, you know? We should be pushing it. Absolutely. Um, like, what's an example? I always like one of the guys who really inspired me back in the day was Sienkiewicz. I mean, he inspired everybody, but he really did a big number on me. And um, his stuff was literally pushing the boundaries of what you could do. Now, having said that, I do think there's like when you're pushing, you can go too far, and you can find this like this zone that it works, you know. And I think that's what we all got to go for, because you can go too far and then it just becomes you're bordering on absurdity depending on what you want to do. I'm speaking very vaguely here, because it really depends what you want, what you're trying to do, right? That's what it comes down to, figuring out what's the artist trying to do. It's easy to dismiss what they're trying to do when you're young and you think, I know better than everyone because I read one book and I'm so good and I drew like one page and I'm the best artist in the world. Then you do 500 pages and you realize, oh shit, okay, I get what everyone else is trying to do, and you start to really appreciate their work, you know. That's my roundabout way of saying, yes, we should be pushing it. And I think until you do that, you don't know your own boundaries. I think I'm still trying to at this point. I'm still, um, even now, when I'm doing some pages, I still am like a little bit nervous. How much further can I go? Without going too far out of the context of what works in this series I'm doing. I do that every day.
Do you ever have worries that you have gone too far in something, especially with what you're doing in Dead Romans, man? Let's get into that a little real quick. Because I mean, clearly there's very adult content within Dead
Mhm.
Romans. Like if someone lets an 8-year-old read Dead Romans, I'd be like, yo,
Mhm.
you need to
Mhm.
work on your parenting skills.
Right. Right.
Like you should really have read this comic before you handed it to your child. Not to say that kids can't read comics, because look, there's plenty of things out there, and this is a point we get to on the PanCon we just recently had, which, like I said, y'all can go check out. It was phenomenal. Had a great chat with four great creators. Um, but it's the fact that comic books have become, and I frankly agree to the point that was brought to. It's not that they've become too dark, it's that the variety within them has expanded so much. You know, it's not just superhero comics and some horror comics and some war comics. There's literally any and every story that you could think of as far as type of story has been done in comics in some way, shape, or form. You can find
Yes.
pretty much anything, whether it's
Right.
yeah, whether it's Saga or Walking Dead or just Marvel and DC superhero books to
Yeah.
Swingers from Matt Hawkins, which is a very very adult story, or something as dark as Crossed, which I think definitely has its place and is a great story, but it's not for children. But at
Mhm.
the same time, you've got My Little Pony,
Yeah.
that you can go pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like that. I mean, I like that we're in this era, and it's fair to say it's unprecedented because comics were never like that before, where you have such a range of content, you know, um, and there's something for everybody. And I almost think it's a shame that readership is not what it used to be because there's just this is all I think it's fair to say that all of us who were doing it when we were kids in the 80s and the 90s, we would have been all over any of this stuff. I would have been for
Oh,
sure.
oh yeah.
I
And
mean, maybe
I
maybe I'm saying that, maybe I'm saying that as a guy in his mid 40s, but who knows if I would have realistically been at that when I was. It's easy to say, oh yeah, that's what I would have thought when I was 18 or 16. I don't know. Maybe I'm full of shit.
that was the time that Image was just really, really getting a foothold, in my opinion, was right
Yeah,
around that time. And I mean, they
yeah.
definitely, I would say it was them and Dark Horse more than anybody that really started to open the gate
Mhm.
um, for comics with
Vertigo
a.
too. Vertigo
Yeah.
too. When
Oh yeah,
Karen,
Vertigo too with
oh my
Neil
God,
Gaiman and
what's her name?
stuff.
Karen Berger
Yeah.
was heading it. Um, they were releasing wild stuff. And when I got started professionally, that was a huge source of inspiration for me. Um, if you don't mind me rambling on about it for a little bit, like I remember reading, um, you know, uh, Arkham Asylum and Dave McKean's Signal to Noise with Neil Gaiman. Have you seen that book? It's an awesome book, man.
I've not read
And
that, man. I'll be honest, I was always more of a Marvel guy. And if
mhm,
memory serves me proper, it was right around or just a little bit after that time too. They introduced their Max line,
mhm, mhm.
which I
Right.
think is another thing that really pushed as
Yeah.
far as the envelope. And I think that's right around the time you had Garth Ennis and Neil Gaiman both come about.
Hmm.
And I
Yep.
think both of them respectively pushed the envelope. It's funny though, because if you look, they did it in completely different ways. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, I I would say Neil's is a little more surreal and a little more what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, I don't even know how to put it,
Surreal is.
man. It's
I
Neil
think
Gaiman.
surreal is good.
Yeah,
I kind of get
it's
the vibe
yeah.
of what you're talking about because he has his own niche.
Yeah,
Neil
yeah. Well,
does.
he was a little bit more surreal. Well, Garth Ennis was a little bit more visceral. You
Yeah,
know,
for
like
sure.
yeah, very much like, hey, let's get into the blood and guts of things, right? Which I appreciate both of them. I think they both definitely have done a lot for the industry, respectively, man. Look at the television and movies that have been made out of both their respective works. It's obvious they've had a great impact. Let's ask you, man, what's your thoughts of the fact? I mean, think about 20 years ago, or well, maybe you're gonna have to go really 30. There was the stuff that was offered television and film wise, comic book wise, man. It was so little, but now you literally have so many things coming out that are
Hmm.
based on comic books.
Hmm.
There are people consuming comic book media that they're not aware of is comic book material.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Well, what's your thoughts on that, man? And like, out of everything you've done, is there something that you would like to see turned into a medium as far as TV or a film?
Dead Romans, absolutely. When I see Dead Romans, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, I absolutely every page of this I pictured in a visual medium. Comics is a visual medium. What am I saying?
Nah,
But I pictured it
it's video.
yeah, as a film or video or film or it's all interchangeable now. The quality of TV is just the same quality as cinema. So is there even a difference anymore? It's just the amount of time applied to the content. Um, but also like I remember, and that's a good point because I think I even wrote in your questionnaire. Like I remember the first stuff that would get adapted. The early X-Men movies by Singer, and I just thought, man, this does not feel like the X-Men at all. And maybe that's my opinion. But having said that, it's not like I didn't rush to the theater to see it because it was the only game in town. And you're like, that kid in you, I was already older at the time, but that 10-year-old kid in me who loved X-Men wanted to go see these characters on the screen. But if I'm being honest, you watch it and you're like, it's cool, I guess.
Don't lie,
Um,
man. You were just upset that they had Wolverine in all black and it wasn't blue and yellow.
yeah, I don't know.
And
It didn't feel.
I
It
get
didn't.
that in all honesty.
It just didn't feel like the characters. Well, having said that, though, I mean, Logan was awesome. Um,
I
you know,
I yeah, I can't disagree in that. I'm very much, and I think though Deadpool is one of those things in my opinion. And I'm a huge Deadpool fan. I've got no problem saying that. I am the Wade Wilson of hip hop. There is no other. I don't give a shit what any other MC tells you. Right? I'm the Wade Wilson of hip hop. Um, but I think that's a film that very much showed that you could do completely realistic, or you could take completely from the comics their costumes and everything and still have it work. Now, to that effect, though, man, I'm gonna pick on you a little right now with the questionnaire because you said, yeah, you brought up those early films, man. Really, the first Batman film with Tim Burton, that first
yeah,
Batman film, you
and
like that's one I never thought I would see answered for that particular question. I'll be real honest.
and believe me, because it comes up in conversation every time people like talk about how awesome it was. I'm like the quiet guy going, "Oh yeah, I guess it was cool, guys." But I'm being honest here, and again, it's that same feeling like, I'm like a Batman, Tim Burton, I love Tim Burton. I'm going to go see this because it's going to be awesome. And, you walk out of it and you're like, I didn't really think it was that great. And as a caveat, remember, I think I pointed this out. I had read Killing Joke.
You just wanted
Killing
to
Joke
see
came out
him.
before it.
You just wanted to see him beat Robin. You just wanted to see Jack Nicholson beating Robin to death. I got you.
Well, that was
That's
as a teenager, you read that and you're like, oh my God, this is a Batman like nothing I've read before, you know? And I wanted to see that on film. I thought because you think it was the coolest shit I'd read, and I wanted to see something that dark. Not that the film wasn't dark, it was, but it had this camp to it, which is Tim Burton. Going into that, I can watch it now and be entertained, you know. Um, but this is the again arrogant, naive little. I think I was like 15 when I saw it, and um, I walked out of there thinking, it's not that cool, man, that's just being honest, I'm not
look,
saying it was a smart opinion, but that was my opinion at the time.
Nick. You cannot go from Adam West and then the next thing they release Batman be the Joker beating Robin to death.
Fair
Okay,
enough. Fair
it's
enough. Yeah.
way too drag. You have to go to the middle. You can't go. Hey, and then all of a sudden Joker's like, I'm gonna to Robin. You can't do that, dude. That is way too much of a shift.
Right. It's true. It's true. And when you're looking at it from that perspective, yes, you're absolutely correct. But again, smart, arrogant teenager thinking I know better than everybody.
Yeah,
That
that's
was what I
a
thought.
that's like if you're a teenager, that's just pretty much what it is, man. I understand as someone that's moved past that in my life as well and had those moments. So I do totally get you on that point, Nick. But it just like it makes me think that, man, if they would have jumped straight to the Killing Joke and just had Jack Nicholson beating a Robin to death, I don't think comic book films would have done as well as they did going
No.
forward, man. People have been like, "What the fuck are you doing, Tim? Would you calm your ass down and have the Joker put the crowbar down? Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, dude. We were looking for Edward Scissorhands type shit. Here you're coming with
Pee Wee
fucking
Herman.
oh my god. Oh Jesus Christ, man. So I'm curious, what do you think about him reprising that role?
Nicholson?
No, that would be kind of cool though. But no, Keaton.
Oh, um, I'm a little out of touch right now. I did read something about him. I really enjoyed the last film. I'll say that. I thought the Pattinson film was great. Um,
I dude, surprisingly, like I was really pleasantly surprised with that
mhm.
film.
Yeah, me
Very,
too. Me
very
too.
much so.
And going into it, what I remember reading, it's a 3 hour film. I was like, oh fuck, really? But a buddy of mine was like, come on, we'll go to those nice VIP seats and check it out. And I was glued, eyes wide open the whole time. And I walked out of there thinking, "Yeah, that was a good movie, man." That's how I felt. And okay, you want to hear another unpopular opinion? Uh, Better than the Nolan films. It was. It was better than a Nolan film.
And,
And I
and
say that being a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I love all his movies. I like those movies. I just thought this was better. When you rewatch those, I just don't feel they're it's just me. I didn't think they were that good.
I man, I will say, like, I will definitely agree that they're better than the first and the third. Um, I would need to sit and watch the Batman and the Dark Knight again, and I think that has more to do with oh Jesus, how am I gonna forget his name? And I just heard Christian
So
Bale talking about him
Heath
earlier.
Ledger?
Heath Ledger. Heath
Yeah.
Ledger's performance as the Joker.
Which
Because
was good. Great. It
yeah,
was. It was. I'm not discounting that at all. I'm just saying that overall, for what I felt worked as a Batman, I thought this new one worked better.
I mean, Batman's always been
Maybe I'm
about the
just
villain.
being maybe I'm just a contrarian, and since everyone thought that was the best movie ever, I have to be like, no, it wasn't.
Dude, I've not heard anybody really give a real negative opinion of the Batman. I mean, I know it's something that's been brought up previously in the show as far as just it was a good work, man. I mean, they did the Riddler justice, in my opinion, as
Hmm.
far as
They did.
playing him for a maniacal asshole that's like, here's this riddle. Can you solve it before someone dies? Like literally that's what it is. It's like you have a chance to survive. Can you do it? Which is like I say I wish they would have let Jim Carrey play the dark, screwed up version of the Riddler. That's because I know he could have done it as an actor. You know what I mean? I wish they would have, as opposed to the campy bullshit that he played in what, Batman Forever? Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't know. I wanted to see Jim, but then at the same time, I'd have loved to have seen Jim Carrey gotten to play the Mask from the comic books. Because how screwy would that have been, Nick? Yeah. Suddenly the guns don't shoot flags no more; they shoot bullets. So I'm curious, man. Let's flip to Dead Romans, right? Like, what got you all into that, man? Was that a dual concept between you guys, or was that just
Oh,
something that, like, draw it, Nick? Fucking go draw this right now.
right, right. No, it was one of those nice little synchronous moments. Fred is a Roman history
Ah,
aficionado, and I was too. Not I wouldn't call myself an aficionado. I was certainly an enthusiast. And and this is a true story. I've said this before. But when Fred pitched me that series, I was listening to a Roman history podcast right at the time by this guy Mike Duncan, which is it's an awesome podcast. It's called The History of Rome, and I was conceptualizing. I had just finished the part on you know the Second Punic War with Hannibal, and Carthage, and crazy good old Hannibal. And I thought, wow, this would make a great story. This would make a great series to do. And then Fred pings me. We had just met at a con shortly before. He saw another book I had released just prior, and he really liked the art. And he was just, hey man, would you be interested in doing this pitch with me? And when he said that the subject matter, which was the Teutoburg Forest, right away I was just like, okay, this is I'm a sucker for these. He's talking about something that I just happen to be into at this moment. Let me hear this guy out. And I mean, it doesn't hurt that we really hit it off personality wise, and he really knew what he's talking about. And it just went from there. Again, he liked everything I was doing for it. He doesn't micromanage. He loves my ideas. It's very much a symbiosis. Like it's a 2 + 2 = 5 in this case, which
So
I like.
who's so
Because if
who's
I'm going to
Venom?
immerse myself, I want the writer to immerse themselves as well. Don't just throw me a script that you hashed out in a day. Um, I could tell that he really put in a ton of research. Like every time I would text him and I'd be, hey man, like, so what do you think about this part? Give me a. He would get back to me right away with like a little essay. It's not something he didn't just like Google something and give me the first Google thing like, hey buddy, I can do that too. No, he knew what he was talking about. So like we really clicked that way. And we both loved Roman history, and we just knew the story could work. I did anyway. Maybe Fred was a little bit more hesitant, but I certainly thought this could work. No, of course. What am I saying? Of course he wasn't hesitant, man. He was all into it.
Is it funny to think though, man, that if you were trying to do this book 30 years ago, that you probably didn't have a publisher to pitch it to?
Absolutely, exactly. Probably even Image probably wouldn't have been interested in it
Yeah,
in the early days. You know,
yeah. I mean, very much.
and
That
that's
was
one cool. And I have to give a shout out to Jim Valentino because we pitched it around, but he gravitated to it right away, and he was like, "Guys, uh, I really like what you're doing here," and to have his backing was a huge up for us,
oh yeah.
and the whole time so supportive, so supportive, because I've done books where you just feel you're just you just another one in the stack for the releases of the month. And I didn't feel like that with Jim at all. Jim felt like this. I felt he made me feel, whether or not it's true, he made me feel that this is like a huge release for him. And it really urged me on to like do the best that I could to
I,
really like every page I turn out, every cover I throw at him, I just want to kind of wow him, you know?
and I can't lie. After you were gracious enough to send me issue 1, I'm sitting there like, man, I don't need to add another comic to my pull list. I don't need to add another comic to my pull list. I can wait for the fucking graphic. I can wait for the fucking graphic. I can wait for the graphic. Even though I know you're like, shut up, buy the comic book, asshole. I understand that point, right? Because I know as far as sales, that's a whole effect. But like, it's in all honesty, and I hope you can understand this. It's I'm 39, and individual comics take up a lot of damn room where a graphic novel just fits nice on a shelf.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah.
look at that. Yeah, fits all perfect right on that shelf. Just lined up right back there. Just a bunch of graphic novels. There'll be more, ladies and gentlemen, the longer the show runs. I promise. Shit, if you looked at episode 1, I think that's already doubled. Which is kind of fucked up, but whatever. Jesus Christ, man. um, so I mean, sincerely though, after reading, I think by the time this drops, what you're getting ready to Detroit, you're working on issue 5 currently, right?
I'm literally down to the last 2 pages of issue 5, and I'm starting issue 6 next week.
Okay, so I would say right now, what issue? Wait, shit. When did man? Tell me when issue 1 dropped.
A lot. This past week.
You're
Yeah,
an
it
ass,
was on
Nick.
the
Nick,
20
you're
22nd. It dropped.
you're an ass, Nick.
Hmm.
Because now I gotta
What?
hit up Dave and just tell him to add it to my fucking pull list. Because I do not want to wait until the graphic comes out. Because I want to read the.
You should. You should.
I
It
will
really is
with
a. It's a. I'm really proud of it.
I
You should check it
I'll
out. We've been
I'll
getting a great response.
yeah, and I will say that I've seen several places where because I've seen Doug Wagner put out to where he was showing that he was a top pick at some certain comic book store. I honestly don't remember the name of the store because like I said, I go to Comic Book U, and I'm trying to remember the names of all the creators that come on the show. I cannot remember the names of the comic book stores that they're talking about to make my fucking head explode. Right, but I know because Plush was one of the top picks, and Dead Romans was right there with it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I mean, I know it's getting a positive response in that regard. And yeah, now that I know that only issue 1 is dropped, now I gotta add it to my pull list. Thanks, Nick.
But you won't be disappointed.
I know.
You
I
won't be.
honestly, and I don't think I will be, man. I'm not gonna try and get into a lot of spoilers as far as because I do highly recommend you all go pick up the issue. You know, whether you check out at your local comic book shop, find it online, wherever, go get it digitally if that's your preference. Um, Here's a question we ain't brought up in a while, man. Because I'll be honest, I'm a physical guy, right? When it comes to my
Yeah.
comics, I'm a physical guy, right? That could be taken so many different ways. We're just gonna segue to the question real quick, right? Um, but I mean, I do. I prefer to have the comic book actually in my hand as opposed to reading it digitally.
Same. Same.
Yeah, mind you, since starting the show, there's quite a few comics I've read digitally just because I've got a creator coming on, they submit their work, and I'm wanting to read it before I bring it on. That way, I can give the best interview possible and not look like I'm a knowledgeless asshole. Sometimes I am. It's the unknown part. Sorry, y'all. Um, but what's your opinion of that, man, as far as the switch that there's been within the medium? Because I mean, 20 years ago, there was no digital market, you
Right.
know? Do you think and what effect do you think it's had overall on the entirety of everything?
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting question. And I'm like you. I still love a hard copy. Um, I always duplicate it. I like everything I get these days. I get a digital and a hard copy because just for convenience sake, I like that I can have everything on my tablet when I'm traveling but at home, man, I gotta have a book in my hand. Yeah, there's just something, and that goes for just novels as well, aside from graphic novels.
Agreed.
There's something about having the paper in your hand. I'm a sucker for books, man. Like my whole life, there's just something like I see a used bookstore, I have to walk into it. I love the smell of it. I love the smell of paper. I love having it in my hand. I love what drew me to comics was having these pages open and just staring at the art for a long time. I would always my habit would be I'd always read through the issue once, then I'd go back for the deep dive, and I would go back and just stare at the art. And I immersed myself, man. When I'm drawing, that's what I want people to do. I want people to look at every panel because I loved looking at every panel
That's
when
why
I
you
was a
drew that
kid.
ass. That's why you drew that ass so well, huh?
Well, yes. Frankly, yes. Absolutely. Because that's what I do. That's what I do. And all I can do is presume that other people are doing it as well. The fans, you know. I'm sure there's lots of people who just like breeze through it, whatever. This is for the people who want to sit there, look at every panel, really take it in, because that's what I love doing, man. I appreciate those details. Like, I really do. I really do.
Well, let me ask you in that regard, Nick, then, man. I think, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to take one of my co host questions, actually, just randomly out of the blue that he would like to randomly throw in. Right? Let's say you got a theme song to your life. Who you want to compose it?
Oh man, great question. Great question, but it's so hard to answer. Who would I have compose it? Um, you know, it would be interesting. Do you remember uh the krautrock band Neu? I can't remember. Klaus, was his name Klaus Dinger? Um, you could look it
No.
up. Um, that would be an interesting composition. I was really into krautrock for a while.
I can't lie,
Um,
bro. I'm a hip hop head.
yeah.
I do hip hop, so I also
Mm,
listen to a lot of hip hop because
mhm.
it helps you just like in the aspect of, I assume you look at a lot of art and such, and it helps you learn and develop styles and be like, oh man, that's kind of a cool way to do that one particular aspect. At the same time, I listen to hip hop probably way differently than most people, and I'm like, oh, the way
Sure.
they did that flow right there and hit this, that, and this, and then flipped it back to that and this and this and that, and then flipped it here was very intricate. You know what I mean? So it's just
Hmm.
it's a learning process in the same capacity. It's just a different a different part of the brain because I'm working on rhyme schemes where you're working on actual lines. Um, we're both writing lines, man. They're just very very different. Uh, but I mean it's so yeah. I can't lie. I'm really I probably need to listen to more genres of music than I do, but I like to think I make up with it for the amount of crazy varieties of comic and films that I consume.
Mhm.
Because like I said, I read everything from Dead Romans to some Marvel books to Plush by Doug to the stuff Erica sent me, which has been wonderful.
Right.
I highly recommend Strange Tales for everybody out there, real quick, that just wants just a screwy book that you could even read your kids. Strange Tales by Erica Schwartz, man. It's got three
Yeah.
different
Oh,
stories in it, and it's fucking entertaining, man. Like if you can't find humor within that, you got a problem. If you find
right on.
humor when you read Dead Romans, I think you might have a problem. But you know, so let me ask you. Let's start. I'm gonna steal another one of my co-host questions because I'm just in a theft mood because he keeps getting stolen by fucking supervillains, right? So whatever. Um, uh, Princess in that, or the queen in that. My bad. She's a queen, right? Yeah.
Well, not
Well,
yet.
she will be.
She's a
All
queen
right.
in the eyes of our
She's the queen.
protagonist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. All right. So, what's her favorite candy bar?
oh, very good one. Would she even eat candy?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
That's an excellent question. Because at heart, she's somewhat stoic. Although, fiery at the same time. If you can be stoic and fiery at the same time, I would classify her in that role, you know?
So she'd
But
like fireballs. Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
She'd like fireballs. The little fireballs.
There you go. Good answer. Good
Yeah.
answer. But no,
It ain't
she's
gotta
a
be a
great
bar.
character. I mean, really, she's the lead in the book, and um, she's the standout female character in this absolute sausage fest that is Dead Romans. But the whole book revolves around her.
I
You
was
know.
honestly kind of curious about that because I will say in Dead Romans, like after reading the first issue, it's um it's very hard to distinguish after that first issue who exactly is
Mhm.
the main character because and that's understandable with the first issue in all honesty because you do have to introduce a number of characters in a story like that when you're building something from scratch, which is something Image is phenomenal at doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As far as like here's his story. So it's like what's your run planned on this, Nick? How many issues you got in the books that you guys are planning? Do you have a definite endpoint?
Oh yeah, yeah. So the first arc is going to be 6 issues, and the second arc, which we are in talks of right now, and Fred does have it planned out, would be another 6. So in total, it would be a 12 issue arc. And again, this is rooted in an actual the Teutoburg incident is an actual historical event. I don't know how many people are familiar with it,
My
where
brother,
the Romans lost.
yeah, my brother would
Sorry,
be
go on.
way more familiar with it than I am, I guarantee, because he is a huge history buff. I'm a huge comic buff. I could sit here and talk more about the history of Marvel than I could the history of the world. Though I do know enough of the history of the world, part two by Mel Brooks, we could get into that. But that's a whole different story, and I don't think it has any real classification as far as in anything like that.
I'll give you a brief summary though. So in this era, the Romans are by a huge amount the superpower of the world. Like they
Yeah.
don't get defeated. So the fact that they did get defeated here by basically what they would have considered, bumpkin barbarians in the woods in northern Germany, was unheard of that it could even happen. You know, that's like the if the U.S. were to go into some, small country and just get annihilated.
The
Uh,
Vietnam
that's
War.
the, that's the stakes here. And um, this loss that they suffered actually set the boundary in Europe at the Rhine of what the German borders are literally today. It's kind of crazy that that happened. Like that's how significant it was because Rome was expanding everywhere, and they drew the line there because of this defeat. You don't lose 50,000 soldiers, and well, I mean they are the Romans in the Punic Wars that happened, and they just kept back. But here they were like, this is not worth it. We have to draw a line here and not go back anymore. That's like a rough uh, basis to it. Anyway, so that first defeat, that's what this first arc charts, exactly that. And then the second arc would be what happened to Arminius after. He's the guy who actually defeated him. Not many people have done that in the history of the world, but he did it. And what happened to him after? That's what the second arc would be.
All I know is if you guys do a third arc and it don't have a Mel Brooks twist, I'm gonna, it's gonna hurt my feelings a little.
But we are basing it into sure, like Honoria, she's a fictional character, as well as the other two Roman, like Regulus and Ebo. They're two of the other leads in the story. Those guys are fictional. Arminius is actually a real character. That he was the real guy who did this ambush in history. So we're placing them within the context of this real event, you know. But like Fred ties it up. It's wild. He really does a job at it, you know. Did
What
you ever
makes you?
see?
Yeah.
Sorry, did you ever see HBO's Rome? It's in that vein where the leads were, I mean, technically they were real characters, but we don't know much about them. So their personalities were completely fictitious, placed into the context of the Roman Civil War between Pompey and Caesar.
I've seen parts of Rome. I've not seen it
Mhm.
all. Um,
Good. It's really
uh,
good, man.
man, I got comics to read, and I'm trying to add yours to it. Now you're trying to tell me to watch Rome. You're as bad as Hardaway when he was sitting there telling Doug Wagner to fucking sit and consume. I don't know how much. I wonder if Doug ever consumed all that meat. Just be glad Hardaway ain't here. He'd be giving you fucking homework like you're trying to give me.
Everyone should watch
Like
Rome at least once in their lives.
I already said I was gonna read the comic, man. Why are you trying to make me watch a fucking TV show on top of it? Isn't Rome like 6 goddamn seasons? Have you watched Game of Thrones?
Oh, I have. Rome is not. It's actually only 2 seasons. And
Oh,
it's a shame because it was supposed to be like five, and then they had to truncate like the last 4 seasons into one, which really sucked. That's what they did.
that's rough.
Because I guess their budget got cut. It was like a really expensive show at the time, and I don't know why. I guess HBO kind of lost faith in it. Maybe they didn't have the viewership. Who knows? But it's
Wasn't
become this
it
huge
being
cult classic.
wasn't it being put out during the same time as Game of Thrones? If memory serves,
No, 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 no. It was prior.
it was
Definitely prior.
prior. Okay, okay, okay.
At least a decade prior.
Oh,
I remember hearing a story, and I don't know if this is true, but they followed HBO followed it up with that series Carnival with Clancy Brown. And again, that was another high budget series, and I guess someone decided that that was going to be their new kind of big Sunday night series replacing Rome. I don't know if that's true. That was just like the rumors going around at the time.
I prefer Last Week with John Oliver.
I'm sorry?
Or wait, like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. There you go.
Hmm.
You don't know that show?
John Oliver? Sure. I
Yeah,
do.
okay. Yeah, that's my personal favorite HBO show. I can't lie. Because it's the only way. Look, it's the only way I can take the fucking news of this world is with like someone to his degree, just making it palpable with some comedy to where I'm not like wanting to throw
Yeah.
a fucking axe at my TV. Because if I try and watch any 24-hour news network, I don't have money to break TVs like that, Nick, and I fucking would because I cannot stay. Yeah, so I need somebody with that rhetoric to make it palpable for me to be able to listen to. Otherwise, I just kind of lose my fucking shit, you know. And I think it's funny because I'm pretty sure he followed Rome at a point too. Well, that may have predated John's show actually a little bit because I know he's made a joke. Is it's funny because every time he's on HBO, he ends up just following some huge ass show every week, whether it be Game of Thrones or shit, I can't remember the two other shows he listed real recently on his show. I just think it's kind of hilarious. But I do think it's awesome that you guys have taken this and are actually making it to where there's historical context to it. I mean, you see that in comics sometimes, but it's not something you see that often, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, do you have anything else on the books as far as coming up that maybe is a little bit more out there?
Not out there, no. Following Dead Romans, I was gonna. The plan is to release. I prior to Dead Romans, I did another historical epic called The Voyager, which was released through Guernica Publications, which they're a more literary company here in Canada. I believe they're based in like Montreal or something. They do basically literature. And they saw our pitch for Voyager. They really liked the illustrations, and it's a historical context set with the voyages of Samuel de Champlain, set in the 17th century. He's the guy who discovered, like, who founded Quebec. Very Canadian themes to it. Anyway, we got this big grant to do it, which was like, wow, like if I'm being perfectly honest, I wasn't expecting that at all.
Sure.
I applied for it, but it was kind of like, I'll apply for this, but I'm not going to see anything. And then boom, I didn't just get that one, I got a few of them. So we had all this funding, started this series. But it's a book. They're each graphic novels, not individual issues. They don't have the same business model as Image, where they just release straight novels. So we did that. Then I started on book two, and then I had the opportunity to do Dead Romans. So I kind of, shelved this other one because also I thought that Dead Romans could just generate more hype, and really it was something I really wanted to work on. I was just like really burning with it, and Fred and I got along so well, and we just really wanted to make it happen. And Jim was on board, so he was just like, "Can you guys do this now?" Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah.
But anyway, that book, the previous book, so Voyager 2 is almost done, and that's going to follow up Dead Romans. But I mean, is it more spicy than Dead Romans? I wouldn't say so. It's a great story. It's very epic historically, and it's almost like that classic adventure tale, which I love. That's why I'm doing it. And the art is awesome, I hear.
That really, Nick. You think
Yeah.
the art's awesome. If you didn't, I'd really be worried a little bit, to be real honest. I just got to say. Let me ask though, man, what do you find is the difference between working with Image compared to the other publishers you have? Because obviously, Image is, I mean, let's be real honest. It's one of the big three as far as
Yeah, sure. They are. Yeah.
within the comic book industry. If you want to name the three biggest comic book companies around, you say Marvel, DC, and Image. If you have any kind of comic book knowledge, I mean, most people will be like, "Oh, Marvel and DC are the big two." Well, do you know what the fucking Walking Dead is? Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly,
Then
exactly.
then
Yeah,
then Image is the third one. I'm sorry. There's like
sure.
there's plenty of stuff out there by Image that's been put out in other formats. Um,
Mhm.
so I definitely say they're one of the big three. Do you find a difference in working for Image as opposed to the other companies that you have?
Well, sure. When you're working with your own IP, um, yes, you're running into the difficulty of having to establish that IP and bring that to the world, versus when anything with DC or Marvel, you're basically starting from an established IP and just and so you can like run with it. You can run with what you do, but it's very constrained. You don't really get the freedom to, do all these things with it. Whereas we get, at least working with Jim, man, we had carte blanche. It's our thing. You
Yeah,
know, we did check with him occasionally. How many dicks can we have wagging in certain scenes with these barbarians coming out, because there was a lot of penis waggage, and we did check. Is this cool? And he said it was. But that's it. That's the extent of it. Apart from that, it's ours, and that's the beauty of Image. And I would recommend to anyone who wants to have their own voice, their own story. That's the route you want to go.
all I
Lots
know
of penises.
is when you said that, I feel like you had the same level of amazement that Doug Wagner does when he's like, "Yeah, I'm amazed Image is still publishing my shit with some of the stuff that I write." It's like I'm amazed they let us just put all these dicks on the fucking page. So, yeah, it's Jesus Christ.
For me, man, it almost feels like um were you collecting back in the day during that the heyday of the black and white indie comics? Stuff like Dragon Ring, Warlock 5, and
I
um,
wish I would have been more into the independents. The I know when Image started coming about, I did very much get into them. I when they when they had their subsidiary that is Top Cow, I dug into Top Cow. I don't know what it was about Top Cow, but I loved the darkness. And maybe it was because I think it was probably one of the first places I really discovered Garth Ennis's writer as a writer, who
mhm.
ended up being one of my favorite writers. And it was him and Mark that initially did the darkness. And Mark's art is fucking phenomenal, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, so I think it was probably in that, like, I really, really dug into Top Cow heavy, man. Like, we could have a really long conversation about Top Cow, like, that got into artifacts and this and that, and I really want to see them make a movie universe of Top Cow. Honestly, like, if I could pick a movie universe, like fucking like how they've done the MCU and how they're trying to get the DC universe launched, and I hope they're successful, to be real honest, because I'd love to see a Lobo film and a Flash film and a couple other things, or you know what I mean. Like I'd love to see those things as a comic fan. I would pick Top Cow, man, because I want to see the Darkness and the Witchblade and the Angelus dueling it out, and it's a fucking $100 million film. You know what I mean? And they
Mhm.
are able to take all of those powers to their fullest extent, and have Sarah Piaz with this organic fucking metal that just eats your face, and then you got Jackie with these little jackass darklings running around. Yeah, I mean I would personally love that. Like that's the movie universe. I Fuck the MCU, if I'm gonna be real honest. Give me a Top Cow movie universe. Not that I don't love the MCU films, because I do. Like Quantuminium,
No,
I thought,
same, same.
yeah, yeah. Like I thought even Quantuminium was good, and people have shit all over that for some reason. But I think it's because they're like MODOK should have been like motherfucker. If you think they can do every character completely accurately to what they are in the comic book, like you're out of your fucking mind. I'm sorry, it's
I
not.
know, I know.
Yeah,
You,
it's
you,
not feasible.
because I always think of they're doing now what we always dreamed of when we were kids, and it's almost like people don't appreciate how long it took them to get to that stage where you could do this. So, is every movie great? Not necessarily, but it's entertaining as hell, and I still make a point of watching it all. You know, at least I do. I appreciate it. I appreciate because there's a nostalgia factor, sure, This is everything 12-year-old me wanted to see, and here it is. Let's
So
appreciate it.
let me
Do I
just
have to
ask you.
rewatch it? No,
uh,
but I'll give it a go.
Let me just ask you, Nick. Out of every comic book universe that exists, which I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot, and you can reach to wherever you want, bro. I don't care. Top Cow, Image, the Marvel and DC, which already kind of respectively exist. What universe would you like to see brought to the level that, say, the MCU is currently? And you could say the MCU just better if you want, if that's your personal choice.
Interesting. That's an interesting question, man. Well, I mean, okay, first off, let's think about the universes because not every comic publisher has these, spanned connective series, right? I mean,
Very true.
really, you have some of the Image stuff, you have MCU and DC. Honestly, for me, I was pretty happy with what the MCU is doing. And I think I should put it in your questionnaire too. For example, like how awesome was Winter Soldier? It was a good movie. It was a really good movie. And Captain America was a really good movie. Was I a fan of Captain America as a kid? No. This really
Yeah, you
uh,
thought he was a lame, preachy do-gooder. I really think that answer is kind of funny. Do you not know of Superman? If Captain America is a lame, preachy do-gooder, what is
right.
Clark Kent?
Good point. But hey, we all love Christopher Reeve. And I think I saw that movie before I ever read a Superman comic. Because that came out, what, 1981, was it? 81, 82? I would have been like 6 years old when that came out. And that was my first Superman. And I was just like, oh, what is this awesome movie? I watched it like so many times, man.
Fair enough.
And then,
Fair
because
enough.
I had two older brothers, right? Like way older, like they were like 10 years older. So they would watch anything. And then from Superman, it was like heavy metal. And, watching heavy metal when you're 6 years old was another life-changing experience.
That's a
And
jump, Nick. What
yeah,
the shit?
I know, right? And I would say that movie, probably more than most things, was what in like really was, oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to make stuff like this type of medium. When I got older, I like went back and collected all the heavy metals, the magazines, just to have those original issues on hand. Hey,
That's a
what's
lot.
interesting? You brought up earlier about um, pushing the limits with comics, and if you think about it, that's what like heavy metal and Epic Illustrated were doing back in the day in that era. And it's just a shame, I used to read that stuff and I wanted to do that stuff when I was old enough to do it. But then it didn't exist in that format anyway. Like I loved large format painted works, and I wanted to do that someday. So I mean, that definitely reflects in the kind of style I would go forward with. But no one does large format anymore, unfortunately. And
I'll tell you on the note of large format and the note of another character I think you would be very, very on point drawing. And on a note of a film that you said did it excellently, that's that judge, jury, and executioner. They call Dread, man.
right, right. Oh, yeah, how good was that? The Alex Garland movie? Oh my God,
Yeah.
so
I,
good.
that's one universe I would like to see them be able to take farther because like I look I damn I don't have it handy. Kind of annoyed. I've been moving a lot, ladies and gentlemen. We'll just leave it at that. Um, I want to see Judge Death in a film.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
want the Dark Judges, and the fact that they've never been able to reach that in any medium besides the books and the comics.
Yeah.
That's one thing to me that's always because yeah, they did Judd or Dread. Yeah, Dread was fun. I mean, Judge Dredd was campy as shit, to say the least. I mean, I don't know how much of a campier comic book film you can get than the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd film.
Right.
But Dredd, yeah, that was them doing it right, and I don't know why
Yeah.
it hasn't had a sequel yet.
You know what? It's almost like you were saying in regards to the old Batman. I don't think you could have released a movie like Dread back then um, without that campiness, but now we can. But I guess in terms of your to answer your question as to why there's no sequel, I would presume it just didn't do as well theatrically as was the expectation, as is the case often. But I mean, is there a single person who's seen it and hasn't loved it? I don't think so. Everyone I've ever talked to thought it was amazing. Alex Garland is a really smart writer. I like all his stuff. 21 Days Later, I would argue is the best zombie movie I've ever seen. They did it right.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was thinking of you said 21 Days Later, and I was thinking of fucking shit with 30 Days a Night. And I was like, it's not a zombie film,
That's
it's
Steve Niles,
vampires. And I
right?
was
Yeah.
like, and then my brain corrected itself. And I was like, oh, wait, no, that is zombies. My bad. Yeah. Shit. I mean, 21 Days Later, 30 Days a Night. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
So many numbers with zombies. It all blends.
Yeah, for real. I mean, a little bit, man, but I do agree. 21 Days Later, even 21 weeks later. I will say, if there is ever a zombie virus, um, that one I think would be one of the most terrifying. Where,
Yeah.
we as a species, we're all just gonna die. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what's gonna happen, right? I'm curious, man. Let's say a zombie virus, like let's say there was just a zombie virus outbreak on this planet. And let's say we got Romero's, right? Right? We got the easiest ones to deal with. Do you think our species would survive? Or do you think some dumbass naive asshole would ostensibly cause our extinction because there's too many dumbass naive assholes who would let themselves get bit by something that's going,
No, man. In that context, like, I mean, let's be honest. I think that's not nearly as troublesome as they make it out in the movies because, I mean, come on. Now, in 21 Days Later, I really dug that because, first of all, there was a hard sci-fi aspect to it. This wasn't some fantastical, in the classic zombie thing, or in Walking Dead. There's no reason why they're doing that. Like I mean, the bodies are rotting and they're still able to move around and everything when all the ligaments and tendons have rotted away. It doesn't really make sense. There's a fantastical aspect to it. But in 21 Days Later, it was this virus and it made your body go, super adrenaline rush as you went around to infect as many people. And then what happened? They all starved to death. You know, that's the reality. That I find is scarier because that's if there existed something like this, that's how it would play out, and that's why it's scarier.
I will say, have you seen The Last of Us?
I have. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one where I think they've done that very well as far as a
Yes.
zombie genre. I will
Correct.
say there is one zombie genre where they've done a zombie story where it's more terrifying, Nick, and
Mhm.
that's Garth Ennis' Crossed.
Mhm.
That
I gotta
shit,
check this out, man.
dude.
Like,
I'm telling you, just even if you just go pick up the first graphic, I want to say it's IDW. I might be wrong on the publisher. I read it when I was close to a library that had a phenomenal graphic novel collection. It was fucking awesome. I very much loved it. But I was amazed they had this graphic in the graphic novels for kids, and I'm just sitting there like, the motherfucker organizing this shit is not aware of what these comics are, because otherwise they wouldn't be in the kids section. Because like, no child should read Crossed. I'm sorry, Garth. I love your work. Just you got some stuff out there for kids, but let's be honest, a lot of your stuff is not. Um, it's
yeah,
just it's what yeah. Like, I mean, would you want your kid? Like, you got kids, Nick?
I do. I do.
How
I have
old?
two. Um, 15 and 11.
Okay, would you want your 11-year-old reading The Boys?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
definitely not. Definitely
case
not.
in point, man.
He
Cross
reads.
his
He
word.
reads. He reads Bone,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
Bone is fine. Bone
yeah.
is entirely completely fine, man. But I mean, that goes back to our whole point of what we were saying: is comic books become too dark? It's not that they have; it's that there's a far wider variety. That you have everything from, as I said, from My Little Pony to The Boys to something that's historical, like you're writing with Dead Romans. It's just apparently
Yeah.
got wangs swinging everywhere, man. That wasn't in issue one. Maybe I don't like.
No, it comes later. It's interesting. I mean, we discovered this while doing the research for it, but these Germanic barbarians would strip bare and they would charge into the fray, dick swagging. Um, First of all, it was a psych out, but then there's a theory that they did it. When you're using slashing and thrusting weapons, if you get clothing into that wound, it'll fester and go and you can die. It'll go gangrenous, right? So by going bare, knowing that they were going to get cut up, because they would like to go like right up, and I mean, well, obviously this is sword
Eh,
play. Yeah, it was a way to prevent yourself from dying of infection later, and to wig out your opponent, no doubt.
Well, I mean, yeah, look, I know for a fact, I mean, that's something that I'm sure people have heard, if somebody's about to fight you and you don't want to fight them, strip down bare ass naked and then be like, "Come on, motherfucker, let's go." They're probably not gonna want to fight you anymore when you're just, swanging down between the legs. They're gonna be like, "You know what, man? I'm good." And just walk away. Because, yeah, I mean, it is very much, it's like you've literally just exposed every part of yourself, yet you're still down for this violence. This is a little weird, man. Why don't you want armor on? You know? So, yeah, yeah, that's a little freaking weird, Nick. If someone was running at me with a sword and they were naked, I would hope I had a gun.
And these guys would be big guys, right? Like Romans from the Italian peninsula, um, they would have been by our standards on the shorter side of, mind you, they knew how to fight. These guys, a Roman soldier was really well trained,
Oh, yeah.
um, but they knew how to fight in formation. Whereas, imagine these northern Germanic peoples with would be over 6 foot versus a guy who's at best around like what 5.5 feet. They'd be huge, naked, long haired, because that was a very faux pas. Romans were all clean shaven, short cropped hair, and like a soldier, right?
So
Versus
you're saying I'd fit more the German side of things since I'm 6'2" and scruffy as fuck is what you're saying there, Nick. All
you
right.
would actually, yeah.
I mean, I guess if I'm gonna go out into a battlefield and we're gonna do it like that, we might as well go out dick slanging. I ain't even gonna lie. Let me ask you a
Oh, they'd
question
also be
on.
hepped up on mushrooms, big time.
I mean, well, that's that whatever. But let me ask you a question on a world note, man.
Yeah.
What do you think if suddenly that's what we had to go back to conduct war? Suddenly there were no more drones, there were no more bombs, there were no more MP5s and AR-15s and AK-47s. But if you really wanted to conduct a war, you had to take a sword and a spear and a
Yeah.
halberd and a knife. Do you
Yeah.
think that would change our mentality towards acts of
Sure.
violence?
Yeah. Think about it. You have to go right up to your opponent. You think thrusting a sword into them is first of all easy.
Well, you
They're
get
right
that
in your
sound.
face. I mean that's a thing that there's accounts of that as soldiers got further and further away from their opponents over the years. Think about it. Even 100 years ago, um, maybe not. We were still using bayonets, right?
Yeah.
You would do like an initial firing of projectiles with the rifles and artillery, and then they would charge in. You're going right up. Even in World War One, that's how it was done. They're going right into the trenches, and you're like, have you seen All Quiet on the Western Front? The new
No, man, but I have
German.
come to the
Oh
conclusion it's a
man,
film I need to watch.
you should watch it. You should watch it because remember, there's a full-on charge. They're going right into the trench, and yeah, you're shooting people, but then they're literally going with bayonets, and even when they run out of ammo, they're using their shovels to just like, hack away at these guys. Their little trench shovels,
Yeah.
and they're just using those as weapons because they're using anything. It really becomes barbarous, and I think especially with the advent of drone technology, they've kind of taken all that away, where it's essentially no more than a video game.
So you think if suddenly we were able to take all of that tech away and switch back, you think it'd make us more civil then? Really?
In hindsight, I don't know, because were we civil back then? Were we civil 100 years ago when,
Clearly,
10
clearly
million
not,
people died in
man.
World War One?
Well, I mean, clearly not. The Germans were running out buck ass naked with their dicks swinging at the Romans, talking about with
Yeah.
all kinds of just metal to go and stab at them. So I mean, clearly violence is something that's been ingrained throughout the entirety of human history. From a caveman picking up a rock and bashing in another caveman's head
Yeah.
to somebody sitting here with a joystick and going and blowing a shitload of people up. It's how unfortunately we've been as a species for a long period of time. I'm just curious from your perspective if we were able to suddenly just all the tech's gone, man. Y'all want to kill one another? Here's a sword and a shield. Go do it. If you think
Yeah.
that it would make people like, wait, what? I can't just shoot him for 500 yards. I gotta go
Right.
stab him with this fucking thing. Are you shitting me?
Right. Right. Yeah. It's a good point, especially because we've already been there, right? We've been to the point where we're not acclimated to that type of violence, at least not direct violence in us. So would we deteriorate back to that level? It's a good question. I don't put anything past humanity debasing itself any further, or let's face it.
Nick, go read Crossed. That's all I have to say on exactly what you just said. Because Crossed is, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of a synopsis. It's ostensibly imagine a virus that all it does is take away all of humanity, for lack of a better way of putting it, and makes it to where it's about its two basest needs. And
Mhm.
Nick, what would you say humanity's two basest needs are?
What food and
Well, they both start with F.
fucking.
That's right. That's right. That's what Crossed is. And
Yeah.
that's what makes me curious if you were able to take away all that tech, what it would do. But I will say, for everyone out there watching, man, make sure you check out Dead Romans. It's got me adding more goddamn comics to my pull list, and I'll put it like that, because Nick couldn't already have issue 5 out when he came on, so I wouldn't have to wait long for the graphic. No, only issue 1 dropped. So now I gotta go out fucking hit up Dave after this show's over, who you can check out on this month in comics, man. We'll also probably be digging into Dead Romans because I kind of want to get his opinion on that, right? And fucking stop adding shit to my pull list, y'all. I swear, the longer I run this show, the more I spend at Comic Book University. Rob must love that I run this show, all right? Like, seriously. But I will say, man, if you've enjoyed this interview with Nick, right, what I want you to do is I want you to send him Gonzo, the Muppet, yeah? To give him a tauntaun. Like the old school Star Wars, still in the box, a tauntaun figure. So send him Gonzo with a tauntaun for the man.
Oh
Right?
wow.
Right? Now, if you have not enjoyed this interview, and it's just like something about Nick made you go, this motherfucker, right? What I want you to do is send him Oscar the Grouch. Soaked.
You know where that came
Soaked
from?
in
Um,
what?
you want some background? There's actually background. That
For
I
why
didn't just
you hate and love them?
arbitrarily pick Oscar the Grouch there. True story. When I was a kid, do you remember the film um, The Day After Tomorrow?
Yeah,
The one about nuclear war
yeah.
with like oh my God, what was that actor's name? The guy from
Oh,
Jason Robards?
That's
Yeah, Casey
I
Boys.
think you're right, man. It's been a long time
Yeah, it's
since
been
I've
a long
seen it.
time, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that again. Remember, I mentioned I had a couple of older brothers who used to watch anything in front of me, and they were watching that the night it premiered. I watched it. I was like, I don't know, man. I was like 6 years old, seven, around then. And the part where the nuclear bombs are hitting, gamma rays are frying everybody, that ingrained itself in my mind, and I had nightmares for like months after that. And for some reason, can't explain why to this day, Oscar the Grouch was the one sending uh, the bombs our way. Like he was kind of like up in the heavens, casting them down. Mind you, this is a little kid having these nightmares, and I would like freak out. I was this big, like, oh my God, nuclear war, it's going to hit us. And that gave me huge childhood anxiety for years. I'm cool with Oscar now, but for years that bugged me. Years, man. I,
All
I
right,
was a
look.
really anxious kid.
Oh my God. Look, Nick, we're not gonna make it that bad. I'm not sending Oscar the Grouch to fucking nuke you. That seems
Yeah.
a little excessive. But if y'all didn't like this interview, what I want you to do is get a bunch of movie theater popcorn, right? Just shove it all over Oscar and then send that motherfucker straight Nick's way. Yeah, right? And check it out. If you've liked this or if you haven't liked it, I don't even care. Like, subscribe, keep up with the quest, man. We got many and more things coming. We're gonna have to bring Nick back for a later PanCon about, man, who knows what. Make sure you check that past PanCon we just dropped about Have Comic Books Gotten Darker with Erica, Scott, no, Erica, Steven, Tom, and Doug. Fuck, I interview way too many goddamn people. Check out Dead Romans. And have a good night, y'all.